9 News Plus weather sponsored by Carrier Colorado. The future of home comfort is here.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us here on 9 News Plus on this sunny Monday, at least for now. I'm 9 News meteorologist Chris Bianchi, and we do have a fairly active week of Colorado weather ahead. I think especially on Wednesday and Thursday, things looking pretty active for us here along the Front Range and throughout the state of Colorado. That'll include basically all modes of severe weather. Or all sorts of weather, I should say. Severe weather, snow in the higher elevations, the potential for some large hail down here along the plains, and perhaps even a few tornadoes here on the eastern plains as well later on this week. So let's start things off by taking a look outside right now. And things, generally speaking right now, fairly calm for us. I think today overall is a fairly calm day weather-wise for us across the state. Tomorrow-ish as well, but I think Wednesday and Thursday things really do ramp on up. Now, one thing you can notice here on this cam, well, one thing, those leaves starting to really bud, but the other thing is we've got some of those kind of puffy clouds, those candy kind of looking clouds off in the distance, and that is an indication we've got some moisture in the air, but this is mainly at the mid levels. It's too dry at the surface for a ton of action here along the Front Range for today, and that should keep us, again, relatively calm for today. Isolated storms mainly east of town. Kind of a weird setup for today, though, is it looks like it's more of a nighttime threat for some of those isolated storms for us tonight, and it's mainly across the northeast plains. Tomorrow's storms become a bit more widespread, and overall, it looks like a fairly active weather week ahead for us, with Wednesday at this point looking like the highest risk for severe storms for us here along the Front Range. I'll break that down for you, though, in a bit more detail in just a couple minutes. There is high fire danger for southern and southeastern Colorado. This would be Los Alamos County on west into the San Luis Valley. That's where we do, up by the stand dunes, that's where we do have that threat for some quick fire starts, so avoid any outdoor burning in that part of the state in particular for today. Temperatures right now mostly in the 60s and 70s, eastern plains right now, 50s and a few 60s for us in the higher elevations. Now for today, temperatures get up in the low to mid 70s. Our average high for today about 67 degrees, so we're still above average, and we do see those clouds increase during the afternoon. Kind of a similar-ish day to yesterday, except I think those storms will be a bit more isolated than they were yesterday, and also a bit later. I think we're talking about more of a 5 to 8, maybe 5 to 10 p.m. sort of threat for some of those storms in the northeastern corner of the state. And slight chance we get something here in town, but it looks like this is going to mainly stay north and east of us here in Denver. So for today, most of us 70s, a few low 80s for us on the eastern plains. And the HD Doppler radar right now, it is mostly on the quiet side, maybe 1 or 2 showers trying to pop on up in far northern Colorado. Not a big deal, but later on this afternoon we do see those storms kind of blossom as we get into the sunset hours, about 7, 8 o'clock or so. That's when those storms really do fire on up along and east of the I-25 corridor. Denver area, again, can't rule out a storm here in town, but I think we're talking about maybe a 10-20% shot at a storm here in town. East, the further east you go, the higher those odds get. But I don't think we're talking about much in the way of a severe weather risk. I know yesterday we did have some stronger storms in the far northeastern corner of the state. It looks like today's storms will be a bit tamer than what we saw yesterday. So the severe weather risk is going to be fairly low for today across even the northeastern corner of the state. But again, watch out for a quick shower storm as you head east of the airport in particular. Now, a closer look in, again, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. That's where you see some of those showers pop on up, maybe 1 or 2 on the Palmer Divide. As I mentioned, it's going to be very dry at the surface, so I think that's going to kind of limit any risk for too much action here in the metro area. So again, you'll see some clouds, maybe a few raindrops in the windshield, that sort of thing. That'll pretty much do it for today and tonight's risk for us here across the metro area and really across northeast Colorado. By the way, yesterday was our first 8 p.m. or later sunset of the year, and tonight our second 8 p.m. or later sunset of the year, obviously. So those showers and storms still hold on through the early to mid-evening tonight, but temperatures only dropping down into the low 50s for us here in town. Tomorrow, upper 70s to maybe about 80 degrees for us here in town. Better chance for a storm tomorrow compared to today, but it is what we'd call a conditional risk. So there is a level 1 on a 0 to 5 scale risk for severe storms just east of Denver. This will be contingent on us getting enough moisture here in eastern Colorado to get some of those storms. I'll say this, the computer models are not too excited about those storms for tomorrow, and they've been kind of less excited about those storms compared to yesterday. Point being, if we do get a storm to develop, it could get pretty strong pretty quickly, but whether or not we see those storms, that to me is the bigger question. So again, if we see storms, they could be pretty strong, but right now it doesn't look like we're going to see a ton of action across eastern Colorado for tomorrow. So again, I mentioned how the computer forecast models not that excited. Take a look at that futurecast. I don't see a single storm, and I put in quite a few different models here, and I didn't see any of the models really getting too hyped up about any storms for tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. Again, if we do get a storm to develop, there's a fairly good atmosphere for seeing maybe some larger hail, some damaging winds. So if we do get a storm to develop, it could run into a risk for severe storms, but at this point, it looks like most of us will stay dry for tomorrow as well. That'll be different for Wednesday, but tomorrow it looks like most of us stay dry. So for tomorrow, temperatures, the other takeaway is tomorrow's probably going to be the warmest day of the week. Temperatures right near 80 degrees for us here in town. That is close to, if not a bit more than 10 degrees above our seasonal average. Now, as we look ahead to Wednesday, Wednesday could be the first, in fact, it looks pretty likely at this point that Wednesday will be the first kind of fairly elevated risk for severe storms for us across the metro area, including Denver, the entire Denver area. I think it's going to be our first kind of more significant severe weather risk that we've had so far this season. Hail, damaging winds, even a few tornadoes looking possible for us across northeast Colorado for your Wednesday. It's the first garage day that we've had of the season. So if you got access to a garage or a carport, looks like Wednesday will be the first day we'll have to break those out. Thursday we cool on down. Thursday looks kind of cloudy, few showers, that sort of thing. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, especially the weekend, does look pretty active as well. So overall, it does look like after a very kind of blah week of weather last week where we saw temperatures just in the 70s, an occasional storm. Last week was pretty calm by and large. This week looking a fair bit differently. We got a couple different disturbances that move their way through. One Wednesday, Thursday, by the way, that'll bring some high elevation snow. And for Saturday, Sunday, it looks like we'll get another system that drops on through and that'll bring us some widespread showers and storms for the weekend as well. So the weekend, this weekend, not looking as great as it did last weekend. Now, one other thing to leave you with here is that 6 years ago today, May 8th of 2017, was the costliest hailstorm that we've seen on record here in the Denver area. That was, of course, the one that just lashed the Foothills Mall, destroyed the Foothills Mall with all that hail, the $1.4 billion hailstorm that took place 6 years ago today. I know a lot of you will remember that. I remember that. My fiance, her car got destroyed by that one on the west side of the metro area, and I know a lot of you have similar stories from that. Hopefully nothing like that on Wednesday, but there's always the risk here in the Denver area. We're obviously in a very, very hail-prone part of not only the U.S., but really one of the most hail-prone locations in the world. So just worth noting that when we say that there's the chance for some severe storms, your first thought should be get that car inside the garage or the carport. And from there, of course, we start thinking about other threats, and we'll obviously get into those as the season wears on. But again, it does look like at this point a fairly active week of weather overall. Tomorrow, warm day, probably dry. Then Wednesday, widespread strong and severe thunderstorms. Thursday, looking cooler with isolated storms, but it looks like mainly just kind of a cool, cloudy day with some high elevation snow, some rain down here along the Front Range. And then the end of the week, looks like we'll see some more storms, some more widespread storms for Saturday and Sunday, and temperatures around maybe slightly below seasonal averages for the end of the week and the upcoming weekend. Well, thanks for joining us here on 9 News Plus. Meteorologist Greg Perez will have an update for you coming up at 9 News at noon, and also at 2 p.m. here on 9 News Plus. Then Chief Meteorologist Kathy Sabins in at 4 and 5. And then we'll also have meteorologist Danielle Grant in at 6, 9, and 10 tonight on the 9 News Family and Network. So plenty more details on all this active weather that we've got ahead for us across Colorado for the week ahead. Once again, I'm meteorologist Chris Bianchi. Thanks for joining us here on 9 News Plus. Have a great rest of your Monday.